I'm Cindy Duval, co-chair of the CVG show. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the 14th annual CVG show People's Choice Award presentation. And we'd like to thank West Sound Arts Council for their support and their sponsorship of this People's Choice Award. We will announce the winners at the end of Amy Burnett's talk tonight. And I would like to introduce Amy to you tonight. Amy has an AA, BA, BA in education, and an MA. She studied at Olympic College and Central Washington University and the Arts Center College of Design in Los Angeles. She has been featured in most national art magazines, and she has won numerous awards and honors. She has been a newspaper columnist and was Washington State's first female journeyman plumber. She was nominated Olympic Hall of Fame and nominated WYCA Woman of the Year. She's been featured in Sedona, Santa Fe, and Jackson Hole art galleries. And she's taught at Olympic College. And now I'd like to introduce you to Amy Burnett.
Hi. Well, this is sure going to be fun. And I have to change things a little bit from the way I started. I was asked to talk about art in Bremerton, and I couldn't wait to talk about art in Bremerton because I was going to get into Bremerton then, now, and tomorrow. But it was such a big task. I felt like I was trying to stuff an elephant in a sandwich bag. So I had to change my direction. So there is one question that's been asked the most in the 30 years that I've had the Amy Burnett Gallery. Where I'm sitting now in Collective Visions, my gallery for 30 years was diagonally right across the street. The question that I've been asked the most is why and how? Why Bremerton? 30 years ago, Bremerton was basically empty. That's 1990. And I wanted to buy a building and I wanted to open a gallery. Bremerton was probably, downtown was probably 85% vacant. It was like a ghost town. Most of the property was owned by Olympic College through the Bremer Trust. The Sarianos had they had also a larger group of commercial buildings. I went to Olympic College for the trust. I wanted to see the buildings because I wanted to buy one for an art gallery, but they didn't want to show me. And they said, no, they weren't ready. Now there are no signs on these empty buildings. It's empty building after empty building after empty building. So, but I would come downtown and I would analyze the buildings. I would walk around town. I would analyze how the sun shone on a building at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, how long it took to walk from the waterfront downtown, and always analyzing. There was another gallery in town in 1990. They were here for a short time and really didn't get started on the waterfront. I happened to meet him on the sidewalk one day when I was walking around. And I was telling him what I wanted to do. I wanted to buy a building. I wanted to start a gallery. And he was talking about his venture with his gallery on the waterfront. He was leaving. I don't know what the story was, but he told me that they told him they don't want Bremerton to become an artist commune. Well, that was a strange thing to say. Didn't pay too much attention to that. But I stopped right across the street. I was walking. I said, Glenn, could you please repeat that? Because I want to repeat that. And he did. Now, a few days later, now I say a few days later or a few weeks later, because we're talking about 30 years ago. So I'm not quite sure the week or the day or the month, but it seems a few days later, I was invited to a meeting. And it was a meeting that was put on by some of the business people in the community. They wanted to form a pool of money that the arts could draw from when they wanted donations. So I went to the meeting, and there was representatives from opera, the symphony, the theater, several other art groups, and there was probably 4 or 5 business people explaining to these people how they could draw from this pool of money instead of going to each business to get donations for their events. Towards the end of this meeting, I raised my hand and I said, I have the money, but no one will sell me a building. Well, the meeting kind of stopped. Everybody felt awkward, but that was the truth. So at the end of the meeting, I was taken aside to a side room, and 2 fellows who were standing next to me said, Amy, you don't understand business. Someone is going to buy Bremerton, and maybe they will sell you a building. Now, we hear whispers about that. Someone wanted to buy Bremerton back then, and I never paid much attention, but these were business people saying this. Okay, so someone's going to buy Bremerton, and I left. I'm still on my pursuit to buy a building. And a few days go by, and I come into Bremerton, and now, wham, bang, every building has a huge for sale sign in it. For sale, for sale, for sale, for sale. But the Bremer Trust buildings were for sale. I could not wait. I was so excited. They're going to be coming from all over to line up to buy these buildings. Of course, we know they didn't, but I think I was even the first one to buy one. So I phoned the trust, the head of the trust, and I said, I want to see the buildings, and I want to buy a building, and I want to start an art gallery. And I would like to know, are you also going to consider merit, or is it just money? Without hesitation, I was told, it's just money. So I'm going into this pursuit. I'm looking at this downtown Bremerton. This is the stage, and I'm standing on this stage, which is downtown Bremerton. It's completely empty. And through my eyes, I see no direction. I see no direction in town for anything. But I knew that I could start a gallery, and I knew that it would be successful because I had 5 things going for me. And this is what I want to tell you today, because a lot of people don't know this. The 5 things that I had going for me so I could start a gallery. Number 1, I was one of the top earning galleries in the United States in 1990. I was probably one of the top 10% earning artists in the United States. I love saying that because it really doesn't mean that much. It's not like I'm saying I'm the top earning brain surgeons. You know, everybody's an artist. But what it meant was I had the capital to start a business. I had good credit. I had the money to put a down payment on a building, and I had money to remodel. Okay. Now, the second is that I had the experience, and I had I had the business experience, and I also had notoriety at that time. I was featured in top galleries around the United States that Cindy was telling you, in Aspen and Portland and so forth. So I had a customer base. So I had the capital, and I had a customer base. And thirdly, I had business experience. I grew up in a business in Bremerton, BHL Plumbing and Heating on 6th Street. From the time I could walk, I was going into the business, which was service, showroom, and retail. And I learned to answer the phone, wait on customers, and my dad would point out what salesmen did when they came into the business, how they would act. Now, my field, I have a lot of education in marketing and sales. My first degree was an associate arts degree, and my major was commercial art, learning to sell the product and the idea. Then Cindy mentioned the education degree, which is important because you learn lesson plans, organization, and working with people. Now, fourthly, I had community support. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate this community. They supported me, they helped remodel, they helped paint. I just can't say enough what I owe to this community. And I was involved with the Sydney Art Museum at the time. And I had an opening, I think it was about 1990. And Helen Norris was the director of the Sydney Museum in Port Orchard. And she was the director, and about 5 other gals, they came down and they surprised me at my opening in Santa Fe. And I was really delighted about that. So, and then fifthly, the fifth thing of starting a business, very important, was the location. Location, location, location. Bremerton is minutes from Seattle by ferry and near the ferry terminal. And that's how I would advertise nationally. And I didn't mention on being a recognized person in the art field, that gave me a customer base. I was featured twice. I was a featured speaker twice at the Seattle Art Museum. And the first time was the museum before they were in the location where they're at now. So I had these 5 things going for me, and I did jump in it. And the location, we had tourism like crazy. I did buy the building across the street, 14,000 square feet. And I went in that building there were 3 galleries: Amy Burnett Gallery, Sound Design Gallery, Art Concepts Gallery, a professional touring ballet company. We had a massage there, and we had a massage therapist. We were so busy when we opened, because you have to remember that 1990, there were lots of people traveling. We opened the last half of 91. So the first year was the last half of 91 and the first half of 92. We had tons of business. At that first or second year, we even won one of the National Small Business Awards. Now, the mass people, the baby boomers were in there, and they were taking cruises, and there were auctions of art in Ducks Unlimited, everywhere. People were traveling and buying art. And they were buying art, bringing it home, and I've seen someone buy a $50 poster, bring it home, and spend $500 to frame it. And in those 90s, the art was framed in triple matte, and it was very decadent. And the people had big houses, and they were traveling, and we had a lot going for us. Now, I want to tell a story that kind of epitomizes Bremerton. Bremerton is a strange place. If I have to define Bremerton, I would say, you drive into cities and it says something about welcome to, and then it'll say something at the bottom. It might say, welcome to Skyville, home of the tallest corn in the world. Well, Bremerton should say, welcome to Bremerton. And underneath it should say, you can't make this stuff up, because Bremerton it's like a Hitchcock movie set. It is a very strange place. One day in those early 90s when I was open, it was a Sunday. We were open on Sundays. And I remember this day. It was before noon. It wasn't raining. It wasn't sunny. It was cool. You can kind of in a city smell the concrete sidewalks. There's no one in town. We have a busy gallery, but everything else is closed. Art Concepts opened Collective Visions opened that second year, and other businesses started coming in town, art related. But on this particular day, it was very quiet, and I was standing outside, and I was on the middle of the street at 4th and Pacific. I was analyzing, as I do as usual. I was looking at the building, and I was looking at all the buildings around and what we can do to make this an art center, an arts district. And at the head of 4th Street, coming from Washington, I saw 2 people walking down the road. And I've talked to thousands of people over the 30 years. I go outside to talk to people if I feel that they need directions. And these people came to me. It was a man and a woman. And I remember things in those 30 years for certain reasons. I remember this couple distinctly because he had such a terrible idea. But they were just exploring Bremerton, and he was going to start a gallery too, or he was going to start a business. And I was telling him about the gallery I started and what I'd gone through. Then he told me what he was going to do, and I didn't say anything, but I thought, oh God, what a crazy bad idea. Because he said he was going to open an online bookstore in Seattle. And I thought, well, that is crazy because I hardly know anybody that has a computer. And if you had a computer, you couldn't use it if someone was on the phone. If you were on your computer, you could use your phone. Those were back in the olden days. And this guy wants to start an online bookstore. But this kind of epitomizes the strangeness of Bremerton. You've got, here I'm meeting Jeff Bezos on the street, who is going to be one of the richest men in the world. He's checking out Bremerton, and here's this artist gal in the middle of the street just looking around. But this was the big change, and it came in the 90s. It's the technology. We opened up and we had a lot of fundraisers, and one of the first fundraisers we had was for the YWCA. People signed t-shirts. Bill Gates signed us a t-shirt. Griffey Jr. signed us a t-shirt. Leroy Neiman, the artist, I think that's his name, signed us a t-shirt. But technology was just starting out. And it was I think it was the second or third year, we had 3 DSL lines in our building. And that was a huge deal. I don't think anybody in town had them. But we succeeded, but you could see as the 90s were leaving us, the late 90s, I could see that technology was taking over a bit. And people were spending their money on technology and not so much on art. As the 10 years went by and we went into 2000, those baby boomers are now in their 50s. And now they're thinking about downsizing. And there's the downsizing, and we get into trend. See, I have all of these. I have all these things that I was going to get into, but there was just no time to get into this. So I just wanted to briefly go over the questions that people ask. Why Bremerton? Well, why Bremerton? Because it was empty, and I thought it could be somewhat affordable, and I could do it because of those 5 things. And we did take off, and we were really successful. Now, this was a main thing, was our tourism. We had people coming from all over the world. I would advertise nationally and say minutes from Seattle by ferry, as I'd mentioned. And I was also shipping. Our building was big. I had a shipping department. So when people came in, I'd say, you like that? I can ship that back to your home, and it'll be there when you get home. And I would say you can, from Ohio, you could get O'Hare, fly into Seattle, take a shuttle to the ferry, and get to the gallery and visit my gallery. And you've never taken a car. It's so easy to, that's what I would advertise. It's so easy to get to me. And we were very successful. Now we get into 2000, I could see things changing a little bit. And as Seattle was going downhill, we were losing our tourism. I don't think local people realized how much money we made in tourism. My first 2 years, half of my sales were tourists and shipping. And I want to, as I get down to the end of my talk, I want to talk about the first and today, 1990. And I mentioned there was no direction in Bremerton. I saw no direction. Today, 30 years later, even with the COVID restrictions, even with the economy, I do see, I see we're going to lose tourism because of Seattle, but I see a lot of directions today. I see a lot of directions for art in Bremerton. People are moving here, they're living here. I don't see the same situation as before. I see technology and being online creating a factor where We meet online, but as far as communities, I see smaller groupings. Not the great big fairs where you're crowded in. I still see the enthusiasm, but maybe smaller with groupings. I also see we're leaving kind of a trend of being a minimalist in our trend of living. I think we're going to get back to a little more details, a little more texture, and a little more complication. I see paintings having more imagery, recognizable imagery that is personal, as we tell personal stories and interpretations. That's what I see. But we have direction now. And I want to point out too that I'm making this circle. It was 30 years ago, it was 40 years ago that I was showing at the Sydney Museum and helping support them. And this year, the Sydney Museum in Port Orchard is going to have their 50th anniversary. And I'm going to have a major show then. So mark your calendar, take a note. That's July 10th, and I will tell you about then. And I want to conclude by saying something, and I don't want to tear up about this, but I want to thank this community again that's always supported me. They've had my back, and thank you, community. I love you.
Well, thank you, Amy, so much. There's so many artists that she has helped in this Kitsap County. I would like to thank all of the visitors that came to the gallery to vote this year. There were so many people that said that it was so difficult to choose because of the quality of art this year. It definitely shows the amount of pieces that were voted on. And it was a very tight race this year. And so I'd like to first announce the third runner-up, and that goes to Ray Hammer for Screwball. He had 14 votes. And second runner-up, Juan Rodriguez for On My Way. He had 16 votes. And first place goes to Kathy Ross for Another Tree. She had 17 votes. So you can see how close the voting was this year. And the rest of all those votes were just widespread around all of the other artists. So congratulations. Awesome pieces, and they are all in 3D this year.
Any questions or comments? The chat bar is open.
Want to say anything else?
I don't really have anything
Okay.
to say.
Okay.
What is a question?
Okay. I would like to also say that we had 18 sales this year in the CVG show that totaled up to $99.80.
Amy, what are your current projects?
Well, I did the installation in the building where I did face paintings to cover 160 feet of the window span. It was a calling, and as being a Christian lady, I was standing on the sidewalk in March of last year, and I saw, and the building was going to be sold in November, so we had almost a year, and I thought, here's a calling. I have all these windows, and I went home and I had all this 32 by 40 mat board. I started painting like crazy until by the end of the year, I had the entire building with faces out, taped to the glass so people walking by could see these pieces, and the community got involved with words. I had painted words, signs all over the windows. Hope, love, it'll be okay. Well, those pieces I pulled out, I'm working on now, and that will be the show at the Sydney Museum celebrating their 50th anniversary. And then the window isolation show is now called Behind the Window.
Nice.
And I have an art house and lots of stories. If you ever want to hear some of these weird Bremerton stories, just give me a holler and I'll be back.
Okay. How about one right now?
Well, do you want to hear a story?
Sure.
This is a touching story. I've got stories that could, that could make you cry, could make you laugh. there's a contemporary gallery downstairs, the checkered floor, and it was a community service. We let people use that. We had, we worked from a model downstairs, so there was nudes downstairs. It was a place for some controversial shows. And I had an assistant. I always had a gallery manager. And she came to me one day, and this is the early 90s. And she said, I've got the show set up. There's not a show for next month in the Contemporary Gallery downstairs. Here's a show, I've got it set up. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be making that decision. So I looked at her resume and I said, this is horrible. This is really horrible work. I should tell her she can't be in the show. And I said, this is really bad, but okay, we'll let it go through this time. I think sometimes artists, you get this university mentality and you just get a little too arrogant. But I thought it was terrible. And the gallery was a big place. It was like a small city. So I wouldn't even go to the other side of the building sometimes all week because I'm so busy on my side. So this big show opens and this woman has her show downstairs that I thought her work was so bad. And I walked in there and it was packed. And I'm getting chills just telling you about this. And I listened to the people and they were nurses, they were friends, they were exuberant, they were excited. And they were art pieces with different pieces to them, and they were composites of her recovery. I don't know her name, I can't remember it then, I don't remember it now, I don't remember her stories, but they were telling stories about her recovery. It was one of the most significant shows in the gallery. And I left there, and I could cry now, and I will never look at art the same, and I will never judge art because of that. You cannot judge people like that. It was a lesson learned immediately. A lot of stories like that. That's just one story.
Yeah.
And a quick one, on a little happier note, kind of similar. I'm in the gallery and it's really quiet and I'm working. And an older lady, gray-haired lady walks in and she's with a little girl that's probably maybe 5 or 6, little blonde girl who's right by her side. And she comes in and we have a policy in the gallery that we always greet customers. We leave the counter behind the counter and greet the customer. And I said, welcome to the Amy Burnett Gallery. And she said, this is my granddaughter's birthday today. And I told her I would take her anywhere she wanted to go. And she wanted to come here. Okay, immediately I know this is significant. This is very significant. I don't want to say something like, oh, you were in here before? I looked at the little girl who was holding on to her grandmother. And I said, I'm so glad you're back. We have so many new things since you were here last. And then I said, come see, I'll show you. But I knew this was so important that a small child had been in that gallery one time and she wanted to come back. That's so important. I could go on forever, but I sure appreciate and thank you, Ellen, for inviting me to be the speaker. And sorry that I didn't talk about the long thing I was going to talk about.
We do have some comments. Joanne Tejeda says, thank you, Amy, for your great art and support of the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group. Love your work.
Nice.
Yes, I have. I've worked with the tribes in the area too, also with fish and salmon.
Tanya Westby says, thank you for tonight's talk. It was fun to hear some history of Bremerton, where I grew up. I left in 1990 for UW and live in Seattle now, but still visit often to see my parents. I hate how the new ferry terminal exit for cars bypasses downtown. I'm going to have to make some effort to get some time downtown this summer and visit the gallery. Thanks again. Take care. And the next comment is from Danny. With your building having sold, will you be remaining in the area and participating in the arts in Bremerton?
The building has sold and I'm continually participating.
Great. And Max Cowdery says, I am loving story time with Amy. Thank you for sharing.
Do you
Meg
have-
Hartwell says, thank you all, great art and stories. And Frank Carsey says, the pandemic windows were fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
I know very few people actually saw that window installation, but it meant an awful lot. This was something that even the homeless, people without homes could see.
Do you have any idea what the new owners of the building have in mind?
Well, they have a skateboard business coming in. They have lots of nice people to work with. They're in a situation where they've been going through these restrictions. They've got people interested in the building, but it's hard to make a commitment these days. I think that in the near future, we're going to see some things happen.
But they didn't buy it to tear it down and build a 12-story condo.
No, they didn't, but some people were also going to buy it. I think they were going to tear it down, and that was okay with me too. They were going to have this be a center building of town, and so I can see this could be a building. It wouldn't really bother me. People ask me all the time how I feel about not being there in the building, and I say that I do miss the building, but the people made the building. The customers, the artists, the tourists made the building.
What happened to all the Pyrex?
The Pyrex, I have a lot of Pyrex. Last year before this Christmas, I have a big family and they all got Pyrex for Christmas. And a lot of it was donated to Faith in Action and Belfair.
Oh, yeah.
I like your new hairstyle.
Oh, yeah, this is my COVID hair. It hasn't been cut for a year.
Well, I'm going to say thank you so much for participating and giving us this talk. It's, you know, I was around for virtually all of this period of time you're talking about. I remember helping you put together various parts like the dance floor downstairs. I helped a lot on that. So thanks for being a leader in our community.
Well, thank you. And Ike Parker Lumber donated the lumber for that dance floor.
Chris Holt says, thank you all. This has been a great talk, such a great show. Really fun and rewarding. Thanks again.
Nice.
And I think that's the last comment.
He's the one that just sold his piece.
Oh,
The
wonderful.
last sale of the show.
Excellent.
Are there any questions? Any other questions?
I see some thank yous, but I don't see any more questions.
So do you want us logging off?
I guess we can end it here.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
that was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.